Dr. Sushmita Sengupta, and very good morning to all the participants in this webinar. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you for participating in this webinar, and I, on behalf of BN College Dhubri, welcome you all to this webinar. A little bit about the Department of Statistics of this college. The Department of Statistics was established in 1986, exactly 40 years after the establishment of this college. Since then, the department has come a long way under the able leadership of various different teachers. Particularly, I would like to mention Dr. Odhikari and the present head, Dr. B.K. Sharma, Dr. Nityananda Burman, and others for establishing the department as one of the most important department of our college. Right now, we are offering both honors and regular courses in Department of Statistics. The department also offers one certificate course under the umbrella of enrichment course, which are offered in the Department of Statistics, who are the organizer of this particular webinar on inflation and supply chain management. We are extremely grateful
Sir, you are not audible, sir. Hello, sir.
But
Yes,
I am not
yes,
muted.
Sir. Yes, sir. Please carry on now.
Can
Yes,
you
sir.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
We are, yeah. I have to shout a bit, then perhaps the receiver is not working properly. I just forgot to take my. Anyway, we are extremely grateful that one of our ex-colleagues in the Department of Statistics, Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi, who is now Department of Statistics and Information Management, RBI, has consented to act as resource person in this webinar. I, on behalf of all the members of BN College family, welcome you, sir, to the webinar as resource person. Thank you, sir, for giving your consent to act as resource person in this webinar.
Thank you, sir.
Statistics. Yes. Statistics, as we all know, is a very important tool to understand almost everything or to misunderstand also. So, in this situation of pandemic, statistical analysis has become extremely important, and we are often referred to various conclusions through statistics almost regularly in television sets by different experts. And from long time, actually since March, we are all waiting for the bending of the curve, which is not yet visible, bending of the COVID curve, which is also a statistical, which is also determined by statistical methods. Subject inflation and supply chain dynamics is perhaps not a cup of tea for me to discuss here, means to even give an introduction. But I hope that actually I am eagerly waiting to understand how supply chain dynamics influences inflation and all this from our esteemed ex-colleague, Dr. Bardoloi. So I welcome you all again to this webinar and hope the deliberations and discussions will be helpful, will be to all of us. And with that note, I declare this webinar as open. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Sushmita.
Thank you for your warm welcome address. Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Brajendra Kanta Sharma, Head of the Department of Statistics, BN College, to present the purpose of the webinar. So over to you, Sharma sir. Hello, Sharma sir. Hello, Sharma sir.
Just a minute, let me check.
No, sir is here. Sir. So can you hear me, sir? Sharma sir.
Yes, he is mute. Brojendra, unmute yourself. Brojendra, unmute koro, mute hoye ase.
Brajendra sir, please unmute yourself. Brajendra, please unmute yourself. Nothing is here. Sir, unmute karo, unmute karo. Please unmute yourself.
म्यूट करा था
Brajendra sir, please unmute yourself.
আমার করবো পারা নাই বোধ হয় বাবা।
Papa, can you unmute, sir?
ও আমার ফোন করে না না
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sharma sir, please carry on.
now am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good
Yes,
morning
yes.
and most welcome to all. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Audible.
Respected principal Dr. Dhruva Chakraborty sir, respected vice principal Abdul Matlab Mondol sir, respected our research and our colleague, ex-colleague Dr. Sanjeev Bordoloi, respected coordinator IQAC Dr. Sushmita Sengupta, and respected participants from various institutions of Assam and other states of our country. Dear all, we have organized this webinar to acquaint you about various price statistics compiled in India and explaining steps followed to compile the consumer price index. It will cover various mode of supply chain of different kinds of agricultural commodities, mainly those procured by the government agencies, import intensive commodities and other commodities. The webinar will also cover the application of statistical modeling to explain inflation of differently behaved commodities. I hope that the participants will be benefited from this webinar. Thanking you all. Again, I conclude my speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharma sir.
Thank
Respected participants, it is the time to introduce our resource person with you all. So for that, let me invite. Hello, Bappa. What is happening? Please control the sound. Hello, Bappa.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Please control the sound. So much noise. Hello?
নিত্যানন্দ স্যার
Is it
সবে মিউট করে দিও বা সুস্মিতার বাইরে সবে নিজেকে মিউট করে দিও বিশেষ পারসন ডক্টর বাইরে গই আর সুস্মিতা সেনগুপ্ত তুমি মিউট করো
Hello participants, please go to mute. Kindly go to mute your mic.
মিউট করো
Brajendra, please go to mute.
Okay, okay.
বাবা আর বাবা
স্যার স্যার
বাবা তুমি সেন্ট্রালি মিউট করো না কেন সেন্ট্রালি মিউট করে দুজন মানুষ পড়বে তাহলে সবাইকে সেন্ট্রালি মিউট করো
সেন্ট্রালি মিউট করার পরে স্যার অনেকে আনমিউট করে দেয়, এই জন্য প্রবলেমটা হচ্ছে স্যার।
Okay, okay, okay. Okay,
Nah,
it's okay.
you do it now. You do it now.
ওকে স্যার,
Do it now and only Bordoloi and Susmita will unmute.
ওকে।
So, dear respected participants, it is the time to introduce our resource person, Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi, with all of you. So, for that, let me invite Dr. Nityananda Barman, Assistant Professor in Statistics, to please present the brief profile of Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi. So, Dr. Barman, Dr. Nityananda Barman, Nityananda da, please unmute yourself. Barman da, please unmute yourself.
Yes. Am I audible, madam? Madam? Madam?
Barman,
Yes,
Barman
yes,
da,
you are
please carry
audible.
on.
Yes, yes, you are audible. Go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A very good morning to all of you. Respected
Barman da, you are not audible. Barman da.
person of our honorable resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi, sir. Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi, Director, Department of Statistics and Information Management, RBI, is heading the Inflation Analysis Division. Currently, he is looking after analyzing and forecasting of inflation, analyzing an Indian economy through macroeconomic frameworks, and conducting the India's bi-monthly survey of professional forecaster. He has been working in the Reserve Bank of India since 1999. Prior to joining the Reserve Bank, he worked as a lecturer in the Department of Statistics, Vian College, 1998 and 1999. He represented India in the G20 data gap initiative of the IMF and is a member of various committees on official statistics formed by the Government of India. He has expertise in the field of econometrics time series, stochastics process, business cycle analysis, microeconomic modeling and forecasting, external sector statistics, structural analysis and forecasting of inflation. He has published 25 research papers in reputed international and domestic journals. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So it is the time to hear from our honorable resource person, Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi. So may I now request Dr. Bardoloi to please start your speech. Over to you, sir. But I have a humble request to all my respected participants that please don't write anything in that chat box now. because it will create some hindrance in the audience. So we will take your questions just after the presentation of our resource person. So Dr. Bardoloi?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please carry on, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sengupta. So good morning, friends. So at the outset, I would like to thank respected principal, Dr. Chakraborty sir, and also to Dr. Brajendra Sharma sir for giving me the opportunity to deliver a talk in the BN College. As already
Sir, I beg your pardon, sir. You are not visible. You are not
Okay.
visible, sir. I beg your pardon, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now,
sir. Right,
okay.
sir. Right, sir.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
nice to see after a long days. Yes,
Yeah,
please, sir.
it's basically after 21 years.
Right.
So I worked prior to joining the Reserve Bank of India. I worked in the Department of Statistics in the BN College during the academic session 1998 to 99. So our batch was it was quite a big batch that we joined, and still I am in touch with all of them, like mostly with Dr. Karunakanta Das from Assamese department. So I am continuously in touch actually with BN College. So with this, let me just start my presentation. Whether the presentation is visible?
Yes, yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay. So good morning, friends. So basically, the presentation, this talk, has been broadly divided into 4 parts. First, we will discuss on the various price statistics that are being compiled for India. Then on measuring particularly on the consumer price statistics, that is the consumer price index numbers. Thirdly, I will cover briefly on the supply chain dynamics of different selected commodities. Basically, the supply chain for different commodities are completely different. It differs from one to another. So assuming a similar supply chain for each commodities actually it is not appropriate. And finally, I will just present on application of some statistical modeling on how to analyze inflation. So the first part is on the price statistics. So the various price statistics that are being compiled is one is the WPI. It is basically the wholesale price index. So wholesale price index basically it covers the commodity prices, we can say, from the wholesale market. So the second one, comes under consumer price index. This is for the retail market. This is basically for the household sectors, basically the household what we consume. So there are 5 consumer price indices that were available for India. The first one is for the industrial worker, rural laborers, agricultural laborers. The fourth one, this is the urban non-manual employees. It is not. It has been stopped now, so it is not compiled now. And the last one is the new CPI, that is called as the new CPI combined, which is basically the official CPI that is being currently monitored for all monetary as well as fiscal purpose, monetary policy purpose. The third one is basically the students from the economics, they will know it is based on the GDP deflator. GDP deflator is not published as such, so one has to derive it from the published National Account Statistics number. The last one is basically the experimental services price indices. So these are, as the name suggests, these are still on the experimental stage itself. Though why this for the services price indices has come. So initially what happens, the wholesale price index, which is being compiled, this covers only the commodity market, basically the goods like rice, wheat, pulses, such things, it does not cover the services sector at all. So to cover the services price index also, so it is necessary to have capture the price movement in the services sector. The services price indices are also required. So basically, if you know that, if you see our current GDP numbers, almost 60% of our GDP is contributed by the services sector. So if we do not have a specifically price index for the services sector, so that gives for compilation of the National Account Statistics, it is presently the entire services sector part for GDP services sector is being deflated or used by WPI or CPI, which basically does not take into account of the services sector. So to overcome this, this Office of the Economic Advisor, the Government of India, they have started to compile the services price indices. So at present, 8 sectors are being covered, but still it is not being implemented fully. So the basic idea is that once this services price indices becomes stable, this services price index and WPI, wholesale price index, will be merged together and then form a producer price index number. Okay, so this is about the wholesale price index number. So it is compiled by the Office of the Economic Advisor. This is the one of the oldest price index number that is compiled for India. So the first was compiled with the base year 19th August 1939, and it was started to compile from 1942. So you can see it is such a old price index number. So current index is based on this is a base of 1112, and it covers 697 goods. So basically, if you see, no services components are being captured in the wholesale price index. It is only the goods part and all goods level data. So basically all item level data are disseminated by the Government of India at monthly frequency. And coming to the weighting diagram, if you see, it has the maximum weight of manufactured products. It's basically, it has a weight of 64.2%. So manufactured products means what? Textile, chemical, basic metals, all those things are being covered in the manufactured product. And among this, in WPI, food component, it has a weight of around 24.4%. So coming to the next about the various CPI price indices that are being compiled. So all these consumer price indices is basically are related to some specific segment of the population. So one is for the industrial workers. The next one is for the CPI for rural laborers, and next one for the agricultural laborers. And the last one, it has already been, as I already told, it has been National Statistical Office, they have stopped compiling this. The other 3 consumer price indices are being compiled by the Indian Labour Bureau. So with a time lag of around 1 month for an industrial worker and for around 3 weeks. So it is at 20 days for rural laborers and agricultural laborers. Coming to the coverage side for basically industrial workers, are the centers it is covering, they are covering 78 industrial centers. So in a way, you can one can say that industrial workers basically, it is a more of a urban centric price index, though it is not correct because few industrial areas are located in rural areas also. But for rural laborers and agricultural laborers, they cover the rural sector. They are covering 600 villages. But coming to the weighting diagram, if you see here, it is the food item that is actually dominating. So in case of industrial worker, it is 46%, and for rural laborers and agricultural laborers, it is around 66%, 70% of the weight. So in contrast to this, I have already shown, in case of WPI, it is the wholesale price index, the share of food was 24%. So here it is actually food is 24.4%, but here it is completely dominated by the food item. So in one way, the difference between WPI and CPI can be made in that CPI is dominated basically by the food items, whereas WPI is dominated by the manufactured items. Okay. But the issue was that if you see the earlier this existing in consumer price indices, they were only specific to certain segment of the population only. So like it was only covering the industrial worker. So I will just like suppose in a coverage for industrial worker, it is covering 78 industrial centers. So out of the 78, like Assam has 5 centers. So 5 centers are basically Guwahati, Dumduma, Moriani, Rangapara, and Silchar. So if you see exactly, they are not covering the proper entire population of the within the state of Assam. It is not covering more or less, you can say, to industrial worker. It is not covering any rural areas, particularly from maybe Rangapara, maybe a somewhat a semi-urban type, or maybe a rural area, but others are more or less like urban centers. So the overcome this that the consumer price index, we require, it was felt and suggested by the National Statistical Commission that India should have a all India basis consumer price index number, which will basically cover both urban and rural areas. So to overcome this point that so National Statistical Office in 2000 they have suggested that since all these that time existing indices, industrial worker, AL, RL, UNME, they only caters to specific segment of the population, and so they cannot be considered as a representative of the all India. So we require a CPI which covers both rural and urban areas, and which will cover the entire population. So in that case, this new CPI has come into existence. So, and after the publication of this new CPI, which is basically called as CPI combined, that has been used as a target for the policy formulation, particularly by the monetary policy. So now coming to this, how the weights are being derived. Weights of this CPI, those are based on actually a consumer expenditure survey. So the National Statistical Office, they conducts consumer expenditure survey. So with a gap of around 5 years, sometimes it becomes 6 years also. So based on that expenditure survey, the weights are basically derived. So in how it is done, so they collect information from each of the selected household on how much they have incurred expenditure on various consumption items like rice. Out of total, maybe 15% of expenditure is made towards purchasing rice. For suppose purchasing wheat, it may be another 5%. For suppose medical expenditure, it may be around 10%. So with that information, the weights are being derived. So this new CPI is basically, it is compiled at monthly frequency, and it is released with a time lag of around 12 days. So the data suppose for this July month, July 2020, will be released on 12th of August. So if 12th of August is a holiday, so then the next working day data is being released. The base period is 2012. This CPI covers 299 commodities, and this covers both goods and services. Goods, you know, is basically all rice, wheat, pulses, vegetables. Services includes the charges that we pay to our household staff, barber charges, then education fees, house rental, those things are basically coming under services sector. So you can see, unlike WPI, CPI covers both goods and services. At the same time, it covers 1,181 villages as well as 1,114 urban markets. So more or less, it is covering the both rural and urban areas. Okay, and how the price is defined? The price is defined as the actual price charged by the shopkeeper. So when you go to a shop and purchase, suppose rice by paying 50 rupees 1 kg, so that price will be taken as the price quotation. The present series, it does not take into account of the online portal charges. So like even if you purchase something from Amazon or any other online portal, and if they give even 40% of discount on that product, that will not be captured in the current CPI. So the current CPI covers the prices only from the offline shops, or basically markets. Like again, the weighting diagram is based on the consumer expenditure survey that was conducted during 11-12. And for combining the elementary price indexes, how it is combined, actually, I will explain you through an example. So it is done through a geometric mean. So it is not the earlier series, the previous series was 2010 based. That time, the price quotations, those are, what is price quotation? I will explain you in a next slide. So those were being, different price quotations were being combined using arithmetic mean. But in 2012 series, it has been shifted to geometric mean, basically to control for the extreme value volatility. Okay. So this is the just these are all dummy data. These are not correct data. So I have just tried to explain you how exactly the price indexes is being compiled. So let us take the example that we have got 5 markets, M1, M2 up to M5. Okay. So what happens? And these are the quotations. So quotations means first, a person, they will go to the market M1, then collects the price of one particular variety of a rice. So it may be the variety is basically defined as that variety which is mostly consumed by the that particular household in that area. So it may, so what happens, the person will go to the first market, collect the price quotation of the same variety, it will continue. So like in January, this is the price, February, March, okay, April, May, June, like that. Similarly, the person will go to the second market, M2, but M2 market is actually, suppose, let us assume it is a very big market. So it's a very big market, and a lot of different kinds of rice are being consumed by the residents in that area. That area is very highly concentrated area. So both this Q2 variety and Q3 variety of rice, both are popular. So in that case, this market area is also very big. So for this area, price quotations for 2 varieties are being collected. So one variety is basically, say, Q2. The third most popular variety is, suppose, Q3. So similarly, for the other markets, so different prices are collected. So these numbers are actually called price quotations. Okay. So in this example, for the month January 20, we have got 5 markets, but we have got 7 price quotations. Okay. So this is the way the prices are being collected. Now, how it is being combined? So what happens? Suppose, let us assume the I have said the base period of this price index is for the year 2012. So the next, the quotation wise, the particular variety wise, the base price, it is the 2012 average, annual average price. that is being considered. So these are the prices of these commodities. Now how these price relatives are being combined? For the first one, suppose 33.5 divided by 28.5 into 100. That will give you 117.5. Next one is this 28.3 divided by 25 into 100 will give the price relative for the second Q2 quotation for the current month. So accordingly, these price relatives can be derived from for each of the quotations for the different months. Okay, so now how it is being combined, that I wrote geometric mean of price relatives. So in the current series, take the geometric mean of these 7 price quotations. Okay, so you will get the 120.5. But in the previous series, that is the 2010 series, this combination was done through arithmetic mean. So that is the basic difference between the 2010 series and 2012 series. And if some of you would like to do some analysis on, suppose on PhD or because this getting data for economic, particularly for the agricultural sector, is quite strong in India. So data are quite available. So if someone wants to do research, further research, it is very data are available, easily available from the secondary sources. Those sources I will tell you. So doing any research will be quite easy for this. So if you understand how you will combine different numbers, so this is the way actually at present our National Statistical Office is being doing. So even if someone you wants to do some analysis on your nearby area, so you can go to the market, collect the prices, like your primary prices, then you can follow this methodology to derive at these numbers. So this is basically how you combine the number. So this is the same thing, the tabular thing I have presented in a graphical way. So the red lines, this red dot, they are the geometric mean numbers, and the others are basically the other 7 price quotations. So if you see this geometric mean, it is, if you just link with linear trend numbers, it is increasing. So when we do any regression analysis or statistical analysis, we use these red dot numbers. But these red dot numbers are actually what? They are basically derived numbers from these different 7 quotations. So this red price quotation or price index, it is nothing but it has been derived as a geometric mean of these numbers. Okay. So for our, when we in statistics, we used to estimate, we used to fit linear regression y equal to a plus bx. So generally, when what is y, we take the y as these numbers, these red numbers. We don't take into account of these numbers. Okay. So now how exactly the final CPI index is compiled. So rice index, these are the same indices that I have shown you in this number. See, these are 120.5, 120.7. So these are the same indices for rice. Similarly, one can compile the indices for other commodities. Just for example, I have taken only 7 items. So like for wheat, milk, like that. Then these are the weights. So weights are basically what? That I told, it is derived based on the consumer expenditure survey. So it's basically how much you have, your expenditure you have incurred. So in this dummy example, it is just assumed that a standard household, suppose it consumes only 7 items: rice, wheat, milk, potato, apple, housing, and medicine. So you will get different price indices for each of these items. So compare the weighted average of these items. So weighted average is nothing but 16.5 by 1 into 120.5 plus 9.5 into 163.1. So like that, and then divide by the total weight. So it's basically, you will get this index. This is the way actually, these are the final CPI indices that is being also published. So the final CPI index, how it is derived from the basic data, I think it is very clear to you. Now, once you derive these CPI indices, what is inflation actually? Inflation is nothing but it is actually a derived number. So it's very simple thing. What is inflation? Inflation is basically a rate of increase in price. So the comparison is being made with the same period of the previous year. So now see January 20 index is 146.6, February 20 is 146.5. Similarly, we will get some index for January 19 and February 19. So the inflation for January 20 will be what? The rate of growth of January 20 index over the January 19. So it is 146.6 over 142.3. You calculate it, you will get the inflation number. Okay, so it's pretty very simple concept. Generally, many people actually they may not know inflation how it is calculated. It is just a growth rate that is being calculated over the same period in the previous year. So if one uses quarterly numbers, so it will be the same quarter over quarter. These are basically the CPI weighting diagram that is being used in the currently used series. So you can see even this series also in the new series also, which is basically the policy variable, target variable. That also has a weight. Food has a weight of around 46% into the item, into the basket, and particularly the expenditure of food in the rural areas are very high. It is 54, means an average rural household, they made around 54% of their expenditure towards food. Whereas for urban, it is urban households, their share of expenditure on food items is around 36%. Okay. For urban, food is the highest at 36, followed by housing at 22%. Okay. For rural area, actually, the housing prices are not collected, but possibly in the we are working on the new series. It may take some time, so it may happen that in the new series that for rural areas also the housing will be covered. Okay. So these are the weighting diagram when we compare between CPI and WPI. So like I've already told. It's the sorry, this 46% actually it's covers on food and beverages both. Okay, so exactly if we drop the beverages part, food has a weight of 39% in this series, whereas in WPI it is at 24%. Again, these two components are quite comparable. For energy, it's basically the fuel part. WPI has a weight of 17.7%. In CPI, it is 9.1%. So in CPI, basically the energy includes LPG prices, electricity charges, kerosene, all those things are covered. And the remaining components, like you see, in WPI, it is around 58%, and for CPI, it is around 52%. But majority of the items, those are being covered in WPI and CPI, and these two groups, they are exactly not compatible. So as I told, like in WPI, it is like chemical products, metal products, which are not exactly directly consumed by the CPI. So here, such type of items are there, chemical products items. Like, but in CPI, it will cover, barber charges, clothing. Clothing is common to both. Like clothing, textile will be common to both. But items like the services that we take the case for cable TV charges, recreation, like household goods, those basically covered your various vessels, all those things. Those are more or less not very much similar, but there are similarities are also there. So with the background sheet, this is how the WPI and CPI indices are moving. So if you see that the WPI is presented through this blue line, that has more or less, it has remained stable. But on the other hand, CPI has been increasing very sharply. So it is why it is happening, because as in the previous slide I have told that the coverage of items in both are not very similar, as well as there is a difference in the food items also, the weighting diagram. So when the prices of food increases sharply, that will lead to increase in this CPI price index. So similar price increase in the WPI in food item, it will not, because since their weight is less, the WPI will not increase that much. But at the same time, what is happening in the recent period, the prices of many of these items covered in WPI, they have declined. So that is why food item may have pushed up, the other items have pushed it down. So that has led to a somewhat stable movement in this WPI series. But if you go by the correlation coefficient, that it has a not a very bad relation. Its correlation coefficient is 0.77. So more or less, these two variables, they moves in tandem with each other. And when we do such type, when one is required to do analysis of such type of data, particularly for econometric time series, we make analyze such relationship using the co-integration technique. So it is mostly, I think, co-integration technique may be covered in our master degree courses. But if you coming to this chart, what we have seen, these are the inflation numbers. So if when the correlation coefficient between WPI and CPI inflation, in terms of inflation, it is actually insignificant. So you can say that the relationship between at the overall level, WPI and CPI, they don't move in tandem. But the similar story, if I do it for WPI food and CPI food, that has again very strong relationship between them. So these are very basic slides like monetary policy. For our monetary policy, like as per Government of India, it is said that the primary objective of the monetary policy will be to maintain price stability. So price stability is basically that inflation will remain more or less stable. And for this purpose, since inflation can be measured as we have seen by WPI, various type of CPI, all were examined, and finally it was recommended that the CPI combined inflation that will be derived based on the CPI combined, actually that will be the policy target variable, monetary policy target variable. So that is why I have tried to give you an idea how this new CPI is being compiled. Now coming to the various supply chains that we see. So this is a very basic supply chain. So like what happens, a producer produces, it comes to the traders, and then finally to the consumers. And sometimes what happens, the producers directly sells to the consumer also. But this channel is not very significant. The prominent supply chain is the red line. From producer, it will come to traders, and from traders to it will the consumer. And this is the basically a formal supply chain channel. Somewhat this blue line may be informal channel, which may not be captured in official data also. So, hello?
Hello, Mr. Deepak Rai. Mr. Deepak Rai, please go mute. Mr. Deepak Rai, please go mute. Yeah, very sorry, Dr. Bardoloi, please carry on.
Okay. So now this supply chain is basically it is a basic structure. Now, but for various commodities, the supply chain actually differs. So now take some commodities, suppose these are the agricultural commodities, which are not being procured by government anything. So it is basically the farmer produces and retailer purchases, and there is no intervention from the government side. So the producer, basically the farmer produces the product. Some farmers may directly sell to the consumers directly in the retail, that will be a retail price. But again, this channel is very insignificant. Very less number of farmers are directly selling to the households or consumers. to us basically. So the prominent channel is that the farmers will sell in the mandis, okay? So to the mandi traders. Now I'll count, and that price, at the price at which the farmer sells at the mandis, that is called as the farmer price, okay? But now how the farmers are trading to the at the mandis? That before that, just I would like to give an idea about the difference between mandi and wholesale market, okay? Basically, mandi and mandis are also wholesale market only. But the issue is that mandis are basically it is the first level of wholesale market, you can say, where large number of transactions take place, where farmers comes and they sells their product at the mandis. In very big cities, like what happens, the farmers will come to the mandis. That is called the first level. They sell their products there. From mandi, again, it will come to the wholesale market. So there will be different wholesale markets from where those prices are transacted, commodities are transacted, and from those wholesale markets, it comes to the consumer level. So I'll give you an example. Suppose for Mumbai, the farmers will, Mumbai has only one mandi that is called Vashi Mandi, which is a very big one. So farmers will come to Vashi Mandi, so they will sell their products to their different traders. So from this Vashi Mandi, basically other wholesale traders in Mumbai, basically there are different wholesale markets. One is Dadar market, another is Borivali market. So those traders, they will purchase from the traders in the mandis. They will, and then again in the wholesale markets, they will sell. And from that wholesale market, the retailers purchases. Okay, basically the dealers, it will come to the small vegetable vendors, all those things, and they are selling to the consumers. So this channel is the most prominent channel where farmers selling their product to the mandis, and whatever price they are getting, it is basically the farm price. Then the transaction takes place between the mandi traders and wholesale traders. So that is the mandi price. Again, from wholesale, it is going to the retailer level. So this is basically it will come to the retail price. So there are, if you see, there are 4 prices are involved. Farm price, that is the what farmer earns by selling their product. Mandi price will be like for farm price, the mandi traders pay the farmers at the farm price. So they will add their some margin. So mandi price will be farm price or some mandi plus some margins that or basically their profit. Again, these wholesale traders, what they will do, their wholesale price will be this mandi price plus they will add their profitability. So it's basically called margin or markup. Their transportation cost will be added. So it will come to the wholesale price. Again, when from wholesale to the retail price, how it comes? It will again, the vendors, basically the vendors, they will add their wholesale price plus their profitability plus again their transportation cost, all logistic costs will be added. So like that, from farm price to retail price, so this is the basically a channel. Okay, so this is for those commodities where government does not have any intervention. But in the recent period, like in the last 2 years, basically, but onion has been procured by NAFED. And NAFED is basically a government, you can say it is a farmers association, but it's basically works as a government organization. So during the last 2 years, onion has been procured by NAFED. And last year, apple also was being procured by NAFED. But in general, this is the channel. Now, this is the second channel where basically the commodities are being procured by the government agencies. And this holds for rice, wheat, pulses, oilseeds. So government procurements is basically done through Food Corporation of India. Different state agencies are also there and NAFED. So in this case, what happens? The producer they sells their products to the government agencies also. So it is the government procurement, and the price at which farmers sells or rather government procures from the farmers, this is called the minimum support price. So you may have come across in the newspapers also that what is government increases MSP by this much and this much. So what happens if the MSP is increased at a very sharp rate? That will actually lead to, because this is an entire supply chain, any sharp increase in this price actually leads to an increase in retail prices also. Though what happens, government of India, even though they increases MSP, their prices that is under the PDS scheme, public distribution system, they are not likely to increase the prices. But this increase actually impacts this channel. So any sharp increase in MSP, because farmers are, if they are increasing the minimum support price very significantly, so all farmers will try to sell their product to the government agencies. So accordingly, with that, this farm price also will go up, because farmers will not try to sell their product to the mandis. If the profit is from this channel, they will sell here. So automatically, an increase in this leads to an increase in the farmer price also. So the other channel is almost same. From farmer, it will come to the mandi. So mandi to wholesale traders, and then wholesale traders to the domestic consumer. So in this case, where government intervention is here, there are two prominent channels. So from producer to government agencies to retailer, then again producer to mandi traders, wholesale traders, and this. But for rice and wheat, you see, particularly for wheat, actually government procurement is more significant even than the mandi arrivals. So these are the two items that I have taken for cereals procured by FCI and government other agencies. So you can see during this year, the Kharif rice production was almost 102 million tons. So till 5th August, government has procured 50.6 million tons of rice already. Okay, so you can see how almost 50% of rice is being procured through this channel. And because we can assume that the very same amount of production will be available, because the wastage of rice and wheat are very minimum. And in coming to wheat, again, during the last season, production was 107 million tons, of which government procured 39 million tons of wheat. So you can imagine, suppose 107 million tons, almost 40 million tons are being procured by government. So it remains around 40. So it is around 60 million tons remains. So out of 60 million tons, again, your certain farmers will keep for their own consumption. So the arrival into the market will be somewhat less. So it's basically this channel is somewhat weak, you can see. So these are the various schemes through which government distributes. It is under, again, government also sells their product through open market sales scheme. So it's basically, okay, so actually I forgot one line should have been here also, because government sells certain FCI, they sells to even wholesale traders also. So that channel is called open market sales scheme. The other one is that public distribution system. So this is the channel for the public distribution system. So if you see the data, out of the sales or offtake that is taken by the government agencies, during March 20, around 65%, this 64 plus 12, approximately 75% of their offtake took place through the PDS system. So this is the public distribution system, where PHS is basically for the ration card holders, where it is the priority, your priority household. The priority household is basically the household who holds the ration cards. Okay, Then the other scheme is also there. So these are under public distribution. So public distribution, it includes around 75% of the total offtake from the government agencies, and around 20% was government which sells to the open market. I'm sorry that actually this link this link will have been to the open market sales scheme. And so if you see now what happens in the recent period, actually the wheat offtake data are available only till March 20. But we know actually government has increased the offtake of both rice and wheat in the recent period, basically after this coronavirus issue. So when government started to increase the offtake from the FCI godowns, see the prices have started to decline. Okay, so this is the story for the wheat. For coming to the another supply chain, that is for the imported items. It is like you can say edible oils. So edible oils, what happens? Our domestic industry produces around 35% of the total domestic requirement, whereas 65% are being imported. So it is the edible oil is a commodity which is basically imported. India depends on the import. Again, out of this 65% of the imported, refined import consists of around 15%, and crude import is basically consists of around 50% of the total domestic requirement. So crude import, what it will do, it will go to the processors, so they will process it, and then they will send it to the distributor. And this is the actually most prominent channel among this, but these are also prominent. Refined oil will directly go to the distributor. Again, domestic industry, once whatever produces there, it will go to the distributor, then to the wholesale trader, and finally to the retailers. And domestic industries, they sells edible oils through the mandi also, but this is very insignificant. So they are selling to mandi or whether to the direct wholesalers, it is not at all prominent. The main channel is through this channel, to the distributor, wholesale traders, and to the consumer. And then this is a very interesting supply chain for sugar. So I'm explaining these things because if someone wants to model inflation numbers, so this will help in formulating the proper statistical models. So in case of sugar, the farmers, they produce sugarcane, and they have to sell it to the sugar mills, or rather sugar mills have to procure the sugarcane from the farmers, and they have that price at which they will purchase from the farmers, that is also has been fixed by the government. So fair and remunerative price is being fixed by the government of India, and different state governments, they can also fix their own prices, so state advisory price. So the price that sugar mills will pay to the farmers, those are being actually fixed by the government. Then sugar mills, they sells sugar to the distributor and dealer, and they are also the minimum selling price that is also being fixed by the government of India. So at present, the minimum selling price for the sugar mills to the distributor or to the mandis, it is fixed at rupees 31 per kg. Okay, and then from the distributor, dealer, it reaches the consumer. So one thing you can just remember, that sugar is actually a very highly regulated industry, because the amount of sugar that the sugar mills can sell during a month, that is also being fixed by the government of India. So you can see the procurement price from sugarcane, minimum selling price, selling quantity, all are being highly regulated. But still, sugar is, for the farmers, actually it is quite a profitable business, let's say. And for manufacturing goods, it is quite straightforward. Like if it is a domestic producer, nowadays it's basically for online, through online, even the manufacturers are selling to the consumers directly. But the prominent one is that domestic manufacturers, they will sell to the distributor, and distributor will sell to the dealer. Generally from dealer we used to purchase. This is the most prominent. But nowadays, even through the online portals like Amazon, all those things, distributors are selling like mobile phone, TV set, all directly to the consumers also. And for foreign goods, again, distributors, they imports, and then either it will go through the dealer or through the consumers. So basically, these are the main channels, supply chain, through which it works. So now coming to our empirical analysis. So it is somewhat now statistical analysis. These things you already know, as statisticians and econometricians know. So time series properties are like additive or multiplicative model, seasonal adjustment, trend, cycle, outlier detection, all those. So I have given reference of 3 books, but if personally someone asks me, the first book actually I like very much. So for when I joined the banks, basically from that time point itself, I have been following the book on Applied Econometric Time Series by Walter Anders. This is really a good book. It means very lucidly, it has explained each and every steps of time series modeling. Okay. So now this is the, we are trying to some statistical decomposition of food. This is the, for the CPI food and beverages items. So what you see, this is the food prices are increasing over the time, okay? And if you decompose it, this is the trend cycle component. So the blue line is the original series. We have extracted the trend cycle component from this. So in this has been estimated using the X13 ARIMA technology from the US Census Bureau. The issue here is that since this analysis, this method actually is basically for the short term. So in the short term, this method cannot distinguish between what is a trend and what is cycle. Basically, trend is a long-term component. Cycle is also a component which has periodicity of more than 1 year. So that is why, since it cannot distinguish between the trend and cycle separately, so this trend cycle component is being estimated together. Okay, and this is the seasonal factor. Is basically seasonal components. So you can see over the years, the seasonal components are coming down. So basically, what does this mean? The food price variability, it is being coming down in the recent period as compared to the earlier period. So now if you see here, the point is higher. So the increase in food prices was higher during this time period. Now it is not increasing up to that level. Similarly, the decline of prices was more prominent in the earlier phase. Now it has come down. So why? It's basically because due to the supply chain improvement, okay, it has gradually, the price volatility has somewhat come down. So supply chain management plays an important role in containing your price variability. So this is the trend cycle component. This is the seasonal component. So what remains is the irregular component. So this is the irregular component. So you can see there has been certain time points where there has been quite spike, and majority of this spike in India, we observe that has come due to some supply shocks. And supply shocks mainly also it is through either through mostly onion, potato, or tomato. So basically the vegetable prices, they suddenly increases sharply, and that led to an increase in the overall our food price index. And in the recent period, see, also there has been a quite spike is there. So during this period, is basically April and May, this spike was due to both supply side issue and sudden demand spike. So what happened when the government announced for this lockdown, suddenly people rushed to the stores to purchase the non-perishable items. Like people went to purchase, rice, wheat, pulses, edible oils, whatever it is available. So there was a sudden spike was there in the demand. Then also, due to the lockdown, there was a transportation issue. Their movement of commodities was not smooth. So the recent period spike, which is basically comes under irregular component. So it is basically driven by both supply shock as well as demand spike. Now these are basically how statistical modelings. Basically, we at the RBI, we are doing econometric time series modeling. Pure econometrics we don't do. It's basically econometric time series modeling. So you know how initially when we do analysis, we need to seasonally adjust the data. That is the first step. Then the variables has to be stationary. And this error diagnosis, which are basically, that serial autocorrelation. There should not be any serial autocorrelation. Homoscedasticity, it should be, error should be normal, error should be stationary. So these are the basic steps.
Sir, you become muted, sir. Sir, you become muted, sir. Hello, Dr. Bardoloi, you become muted.
Okay.
Yes. Right,
now?
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay, I think sharing. Is it visible? The screen is visible, presentation?
Right, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, actually, I am not able to see yet. Okay.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Okay. So these are the basically for single equation, one can use OLS or GMM. So OLS and GMM I will cover. Just give an example. Then system of equations are there. So these methods basically it assumes that the variance is constant. But in general, when we do practical life, in practical experience, we observe that many series, the variance is not constant. It actually varies. But when we do a ordinary least square, we assume that the variance is homoscedastic, means it remains constant. So in such case, one has to use different type of techniques. Either it is called Arch or Gartz model. So these are more or less single equation. There are other multivariate systems are there. Then these methods mostly can be used when the frequency of all the variables are uniform. What does this means? If you are using all your variables y, x, they has to be at the same frequency. If they are at monthly frequency, they has to be at monthly, all has to be at monthly. If annual, all variables has to be at annual frequency. So their frequency should be uniform, then only we can make use of all these techniques. But there are cases when if one has to make analysis when the frequencies are different. So like you may see that our consumer price index numbers are compiled at monthly frequency, whereas our GDP, our output data are released at quarterly frequency. So if you want to fit some regression or analysis based on monthly data and quarterly data, then one has to use this mixed frequency technique. It's basically based on a Bayesian technique. So these are basically the time series model that we are using. So when we use a single equation, so this takes the equation of the form like y equal to a plus bx. So there are two variables are here, x1 and x2. But the basic assumption here is that the variance of the error, this is constant. But in real life, we'll see there are examples are there where these variance are not constant. So one has to model this variance part also. So in this process, this is known as GARS process, okay, or some ARTS process also. So the mean equation for both are, the equations are same, but here your variance is constant. Here your variance is varying. So that is why for variance also one has to write an equation. So this is the process of GARS model, where basically we model both mean and variance. So let us take in our example, just try to see, suppose Y is our retail price, okay? The final price that we consumer pays. X1 is the Mandi price we have taken, okay? That we have seen what is the Mandi price. And X2T is the markup from wholesale to retail price. Is markup is nothing but margin, but the traders make profits. So basically, a retailer, he will pay suppose 30 rupees from to suppose purchase something from the wholesale trader, and then he will make some profit and he will sell at 35 rupees. So that 5 rupees is basically called a markup or margin. Okay, so the final retail price, it depends on how the Mandi, it depends on Mandi price as well as the markup by the seller. Okay.
Sir, I beg your pardon, Dr.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, your screen is not totally shown. We just see one some innate, that means some mail ID or something like that. The PPT is not shown completely, sir.
Dr. Bordoloi, Dr. Bordoloi, what I think you should first get out of presentation and then present again.
Okay, okay.
Then the screen.
I'm unable to.
You click that present now.
Okay, present now, then window.
Then screen sharing. অভিজিৎ আছা নাকি অভিজিৎ? অভিজিৎ আছা নাকি?
না না স্যার, আমি আছি স্যার।
তুমি এখন খারাপ গাইড করে দিয়া
স্যার।
হ্যাঁ
স্যার,
hello. Is it coming now?
No sir.
Yes sir, if something is coming, let's see. Yes sir, your presentation is coming, sir.
It's coming now.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so is it visible now?
Yes, yes, right sir, right sir.
Okay, okay. So basically our mean equation is to model this retail price, which depends on Mandi price. So it depends, X1 is our Mandi price and X2 is basically the markup. Okay. As I told you, actually the data on economic time series are quite good. Actually, this data are from like Government of India, they have been publishing those informations. So doing PhD or research in economics, it means like data availability is actually is not an issue. The farm harvest price, that is the farm price, are being published. All these data are being published by the government of India. So these are available only at annual frequency, but it has a time lag. So last year they have published the data for, I think, 16-17. So still 2-3 years time lag are there. But if you go to the mandi price and mandi arrival numbers, mandi arrival is basically the quantity of the item that arrives into the market. So these are available on a daily basis through this Government of India web portal, EggMarkNet web portal. So one can go to the EggMarkNet web portal, get all this mandi price and mandi arrival data. Mandi price is basically, again, it is the different mandi level data are available. So you can go to different mandi level, what is the quantity of arrival of the agricultural commodities, what is the mandi price, everything you will get. Then again, Department of Consumer Affairs, they are also publishing wholesale and retail prices of the 22 essential commodities. So 22 essential commodities, it means basically rice, wheat, milk, sugar, pulses, tomato, potato, onion, all those prices are available at daily frequency. Again, this CPI combine is basically, this is the series which we basically monitor for our monetary policy purpose. It is at monthly frequency compiled by National Statistical Office, and WPA is released by the Office of the Economic Advisor, again Government of India. So if anyone wants to do some work, you can visit these websites, all these data are available. So even this Department of Consumer Affairs, basically DCA data, they are not only publishing at daily level, they are publishing, even disseminating at monthly level also. Zone-wise data are available, so for what is happening at each zone, all those things you can analyze the data. So like now this is coming to our modeling wheat price. So this is the wheat, basically the wheat arrives in the mandis. So we have observed that almost 50% of the wheats are being procured by the government agencies, basically FCI. So those 50%, or basically around 50, I think around 40 million tons this year, they have procured. It has gone to the FCI channel. And this is the, out of the remaining, basically again households for self-consumption, they will keep certain amount. And these are the basically the remaining wheat that comes to the mandis, where basically farmers sells their wheat in the mandis. So what we observe basically, since wheat is a rabi crop, so it is mostly harvested in the month of March or February, and February it starts harvesting. So accordingly, the arrival of wheat in the market, it goes up significantly during April and May. So black is the average arrival during 11 to 2016, and then this yellow, green, blue, and red are basically arrival during the years 17, 18, 19, and 20. So if you see, generally in April, the arrival picks up very fast. But this year, due to the lockdown, the arrival was very less. And this less arrival also, it has not picked up actually this year. Even in May, June, July, if you see, generally since this rate was less, one can expect that these red bars would have been higher. But so far, this has not happened. But on the other hand, what you can see in the earlier slide, wheat prices was actually declining. Generally, when mandi arrival declines, what should have happened? Price should have go up. But since FCI is releasing more wheat, that is actually mandi prices are actually declining. At the same time, there has been that government, for the migrant workers, government has procured the cereals items like wheat, rice, and they are distributing to them at a very minimal prices. So that has also contributed to a decline in the wheat prices during this year. So this is the wheat price movement. The blue line is the minimum support price. Basically, when FCI, they procures from the farmers at this level. So minimum support price, it remains at the lowest level. Then black line is the mandi price. Green is the wheat price per kg at the wholesale market, and this is at the retail market. So Wholesale market is basically the last, what I have taken, it is the last level of wholesale market. So the prices are increasing, but it is very stable. If you can see, if we fit a trend line, the trend line is quite stable. So wheat prices has been increasing at a fairly stable prices. So this is the behavior of the markup. Markup is basically what retailers, the final dealers, like they sales with their making a profit. So this markup for wheat is also quite stable. Okay. So when you fit a regression line, if you, this is the like through the ordinary least square. So retail wheat price, it depends on the mandi price as well as the markup. So if you see, the coefficients are quite significant, but it is obviously the mandi price is more dominating. It has a larger coefficient of 0.27. And even if you see the all error diagnosis tests, they are also satisfied. So since the wheat price movement was quite stable, okay, so it is quite well captured by the OLS system or ordinary least square. And now this is the price. Again, this is for the wheat retail price. Now we are modeling the wheat mandi price. Now the mandi price will depend on the suppose arrival numbers. So when mandi arrival increases, the wheat mandi prices decline. So this is as per the negative sign. But here, see, we have taken into account of another variable of expected wheat price. So basically, current mandi wheat price depends on the mandi arrival as well as whatever you are expecting, and as well as on the minimum support price. So all coefficients are significant with the proper signature. Now the issue is that this is the wheat MSP we can measure. This is the arrival data. Now this number is a basically expectation. So when one uses an expected variable, so that time what happens, we cannot make use of the ordinary least square. So one has to make use of the method of general method of moments. So that is why for this equation, since the expected variables has to be estimated, this equation has been estimated using the GMM method. Okay, but here there was no expected variable, so it was OLS, which generally we mostly use. So again, for GMM also, all error residual properties are being satisfied. Now coming to the tomato. So see, in the earlier case, we observed that wheat was quite a stable series. Okay, it was a very stable series. Now this is the tomato arrivals. More or less for tomato, it is throughout the year it arrives in the mandis. But see now how the tomato price behaves. Okay, black line is the mandi price, green is the wholesale market price, and red is the retail price. Unlike wheat price, which was increasing very smoothly, it is very volatile. It goes up, down, up, down. It's full of volatility. So in such a variable, and even if when you see, this is the markup. So when prices goes up, you just see markup also goes up. Basically, when prices goes up, the traders tries to make maximum profit. They try to increase their margin also. So during the times of increasing prices, they are also trying to make more profit by increasing the margin. Okay, so this is the behavior of the tomato prices. And the overall series itself is quite volatile. So can we make use of the ordinary least square in this case? So first we try to estimate through OLS. Coefficients are fine, it is satisfied. Like if mandi prices increases, retail prices will also go up by 0.65%. Then markup is also positive. But if you come to the residual testing, all tests are satisfied. It is suggesting that error diagnoses are not satisfied as required for OLS. There is serial autocorrelation problem. It's a Lagrange's multiplier. The variables are non-random. It is again homoscedasticity assumption is being rejected, so it is heteroscedasticity. They are non-normal, so as suggested by the Zergbera test. So in such a case, one has to make use of the Gartz model. So this is the difference between these two equations. See, this is the OLS coefficient estimate, and this is the mean equation, and this is for the GARS mean equation. There is hardly any change in the coefficient. See, it is 0.65, it is 0.66, it is 0.05, it is 0.06. But here the error was not satisfying all the conditions. So in GARS model, basically this is the, again, this system estimates both mean equation as well as the variance equation. So when we make use of the GARS data, the GARS equation, GARS methodology to follow retail this tomato inflation prices, the residual, it satisfies all the conditions that are required for econometric time series modeling. So like since you can see, since the wheat prices are quite stable, OLS method will work. But in case of tomato, which is very volatile, so here OLS will not work. So one has to make use of alternative methodology. So it is not necessary after GARS model. One can try different methods are also there. So basically, these are my presentations. So thank you very much. So any questions I would like to.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. It was really a very informative and interesting presentation, and I feel, being a man of chemistry, that this economics and statistics are much more interesting than chemistry. So we can take few questions, sir, if you allow, Dr. Bardoloi. Can we take few questions? Hello, Dr. Bardoloi. Hello, sir. Please go unmute, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
So respected participant friends, and I have few students are there also. So please write your query and questions in the chat box. We will address those questions with the help of our honorable resource person. And Dr. Bardoloi, before the questions comes, I have one query.
Yeah.
Okay. So how can we predict the rate of inflation after 5 years or 10 years? That after 5 years or 10 years, what will happen? Is there any prediction? Can we predict?
It is very difficult. In fact, forecasting beyond 3-4 months itself is very challenging, particularly during this pandemic. Like our monetary policy was declared on last 6th. So we were really struggling to give a forecast. How, like that, because the normal statistical models, they were not working properly. It was so volatile. So finally, we have to make use of the different technology. It's a Bayesian technology based on which, through Bayesian, we have to give some. We can put our own judgment somewhat, up to somewhat. So through that, we try to do. But yes, forecasting the headline CPI inflation is quite challenging, I must say.
Yes, sir. When we talk about our savings and investment, rather say, then these investment gurus or they tell something that 6% inflation will be there when you will go to retirement or something like that. So that's why I am asking this, whether we can predict anything. Whatever they are telling, you have to invest this much amount. That after 10 years, when you will go for retirement, there will be no problem in your savings and all these things. So it will be so that is my question.
Yeah, but I must say it is very difficult.
Yes. Okay. So any questions, any query, anybody? Brajendra, if you have anything, or anybody, we can take few questions. It was such a wonderful and interesting topic. So many things we can learn, actually, this Mandi house and this retail price, and we don't know what we are giving, how we are purchasing. So whatever maybe. So sir, principal sir, if you give some notes, some points, sir, if you highlight.
So actually, it's a very nice presentation, and we could learn a lot of things. But I have to ask a question. I have to know it much more before.
Sir, actually, I have given my email ID at the end of the presentation. So if any query is there, one can write to me also. Means I don't, I will send you the presentation, so it can be shared with all the participants. So my email ID is also there.
Sir, we have one question from Pallavi Chakraborty. Sir, can you take, sir? Hello, sir. Can we take, sir? Sir, please go.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yes.
Pallavi Chakraborty writes that considering the current situation,
Mhm.
e-commerce platforms are very likely to take over. Considering the current situation, e-commerce platforms are very likely to take over.
Yeah.
As you have mentioned that any discount on online purchase is not being captured while calculating CPI. So what is your idea on this?
See, the online prices in any way, the current CPI will not. No. See, the current CPI will not capture the online prices. So we are trying to this new CPI work was going on, but the issue was that due to this pandemic season issues, all possibly the new CPI will not come out very quickly. It will take some time. So possibly first thing that in the new CPI we are thinking that online prices should also be a part of this. So that way we'll try to capture it. But yes, as of now, this will not be captured. This online prices. So any discount, but I think nowadays, no, in the online portal also they are not giving any discount.
Sir, please unmute, sir. Sir, please unmute. Dr. Bardarai, please.
Yeah. So I think nowadays even through online portal also they are not giving any further discount. They are selling at the MRP only. So obviously that drawback is there, and we will try to sort out in the next series if we can include online prices also into the system.
Thank you, sir. Sir, she has another question.
Yeah.
That the Essential Commodities Act was amended in June. How is it expected to help the farmers and the consumers, both of whom are components in the supply chain? That means someone benefiting at the cost of the others. Sir, please unmute yourself, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. I think I'm touching somewhere. It is becoming. So it's basically, see, the essential commodities are mainly meant to initially when it was done to protect the consumers. Okay. So, but the second was that the APMC Act was being formed to somewhat protect the farmers. Now with the Essential Commodities Act has been removed. So basically farmers should get some better price, but the issue is that the farmers who are producing vegetables or fruits, they may not be able to hold their item because those are very highly perishable. So like vegetables, you cannot hold for, I don't think can be stored for more than 7 to 10 days. So farmers have to sell their fruits and vegetables to the market. But obviously, farmers were producing pulses, oilseeds, even potato onion. Those can be stored for a long time. So with this, they can wait for some time to get the proper price. When the market price increases, so since now this Essential Commodities Act has been removed, so there are no restriction on traders also that they will, because earlier what happens under this act, traders were allowed to only store certain amount of of onion like that. So those things are not there, and possibly I think this will help both farmers as well as consumers, because the price price discovery will be more now, because earlier, due to Essential Commodities Act, the actual prices were not very, price formation was not very proper. But I hope with this, farmers will be able to get better pricing.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one question from one of our students, Gaurav, that which committee defined strategic inflation rates like 4 ± 2% from the government's end?
Okay, so actually it was initially the committee. It was a working group. It was set up by the Reserve Bank of India. It is there in my slide also. So that working group was the chairperson was Dr. Urjit Patel. So that committee suggested that the inflation target should be 4% with a ±2%. And then it was recommended, and Government of India, they accepted that recommendation. So it is the Urjit Patel committee who suggested this, and Government of India accepted it.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, we just take another two. Can we take another 2 more questions, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, these questions are asked by Mr. Shumit De. He is our colleagues from the Department of Economics. That, sir, do you think that supply shock created by the recent pandemic situation is going to adversely affect the CPI, and how long its effect will remain there?
See, it has really affected. So if you see the CPI numbers for April, May, June, particularly on the food items, April was driven by both supply shocks, because there was transportation issues due to the lockdown. Then there was suddenly household demand for hoarding. Basically, they have tried to keep it with them, store, because basically storage. So both these contributed to spike in inflation during April and May. Then gradually, with the opening of the lockdown, the supply situation has improved. But the problem is that, see, now even at certain places, new cases are coming, and there is a localized lockdowns are always there. Like I think West Bengal, they have made again lockdown. So first thing, until and unless this corona issue is not controlled, there may be some issue with the supply chain. That will be it has improved, but as compared to April, but still the problems are persisting, and we don't know if in case any second wave comes, then again that supply chain may completely get distorted. So in the short run, maybe there will be some because the positive points are somewhat that in states like Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, in the urban areas, somewhat it is coming down, but it is going to the rural areas. So if any spread of coronavirus to the rural areas, is actually it will play havoc, I think. So if it spreads, if you cannot stop it from spreading in the rural areas, I think the supply issue will be a big problem.
Yes, sir. Right, sir. Sir, another question from Dr. Gaur Krishna Saha of Shapotgram College. He asks, can you point out some of the demands? Just a minute, sir. Sir, somehow it is deleted by sir. Okay, sir. Another question from Mr. Dinesh Lahakar. Sir, what will happen in the supply chain if subsidy is given to the producers instead of changing MSP?
Subsidy. See, if the subsidy is given to the producer, then the thing is that the farmers will get better price, because they will pay more to the farmers, and for farmers, price will be more, their income will be more. At the same time, since it is a subsidy price, so they will not, government is subsidizing, so the retail price should not go up, because the whatever they should have given, means if the producer would have hiked their prices, since it is a subsidized, they should not increase the retail price. So in one way, I think the farmer will get better price, and as being a retailer, we household will not get much impacted.
Yes, sir. This is the last question, sir. This is the last question from Dr. Gaurkrishna Saha. That can you point out some of the demands factor which matters a lot for controlling inflationary dynamics?
See, it's the main demand factor is basically your income. Okay, so for us, what demand will be mainly from the domestic. Our case, it is mostly domestic demand driven. So it's demand factors. I think one is the wage rate. If the salary or wages are not increased, if it is increased very sharply, then actually what in the earlier occasions what we have seen in around 2011-12, the prices when the income for both rural areas and urban areas increased due to the sharp increase in the MNREGA rate, that led to an increase in the other rural wages prices also. That time the demand for protein items, basically on egg, meat, fish, milk, their demand increased sharply, and that time it led to a continued very high inflation. That time also the inflation was remained very high. It was due to the cause that it was pushed up by the protein items, basically milk, egg, meat, fish. So with the rising income, their dietary somewhat shifted, and the demand shifted to this. And now actually possibly it may be moving on the opposite side, because we really don't know how the rural economy is impacted. So many laborers, they left the big cities.
Yes.
So getting higher income at this moment is somewhat not very expected, because their expenditures will be towards most essential items like rice, dal. Then only they will think for the other protein items or fruits like that. It is actually, we have observed in the recent period, fruits prices have actually declined very sharply.
So it was really wonderful, sir.
Thank
So
you.
we are almost at the end of this program. There is this announcement about feedback. The feedback link will be provided in our college website www.bncollege.co.in, and it is given in the chat box. It will be available around 8 p.m. in the night, and it will be there for 24 hours. So all the participants are requested to please visit our website and give your feedback. The auto-generated e-certificates, you will get the auto-generated e-certificates. So let us wind up the program, and on behalf of BN College, I want to offer my sincere thanks to our Honorable Principal Sir for allowing us to organize this webinar. Actually, our Principal Sir is always a source of inspiration for us. We are really thankful to Dr. Sanjeev Bardoloi for such a wonderful and informative deliberation. I know he remained very busy, but he accepted our invitation. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you once again. And I offer my sincere thanks to the Department of Statistics, Dr. Sharma and Dr. Barman, for taking this initiative to organize this webinar. Thank you very much, sir. And I am really thankful to all the participants, faculty members for our college, for other colleges, along with the students for your active participation. And lastly, I offer my heartfelt thanks to all the ITUC team members for their support and cooperations. So thank you once again. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Bardoloi.
Thank you very much.
Bardoloi, I hope that we will meet again and we will organize such programs, because I am very what to say, I'm very pleased to feel that you are here for us, and such a wonderful and actually a resource person.
Actually, BN College is my own college. I always feel, because I was a part of this college.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
মোটামুটি ধর